So we're starting with Chapter 1, Assignment 1, and it starts on page 5. Start Excel using one of the methods outlined above. You may have an icon already on your desktop. If you don't, you can type the word Excel into the search box and the icon will come up. I prefer the Excel 2016 or 2019 to the app, but use whichever one you have. So I'm going to start this from scratch. So I'm going to click blank workbook. So we're going to type in the information on page 6. I am ignoring the tip at the top of page 6. I think it's too much information at this time. To make it easier for you to see, I'm going to make my screen a little bit bigger. And you can do that by going View, Zoom, and I'm going to zoom to 200 for the moment. It just makes it clearer for you. So the heading is Screen on the green. And when I've pressed enter, I can go back on top of that, and on the Home tab, I can click the bold button to get that in the heavy print shown. In A4, we're typing the word Monday. The following one is Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And in A10, we're typing total. You might notice that the word Wednesday is wider than the column. So a way of sorting that out would be to highlight Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, go into Format, Autofit Column Width. The reason I only highlighted those words is because I don't want the column being as wide as this heading, Screen on the green. Now I'm going to type in the titles of the films. So Terminator Salvation, Star Trek, Angels and Demons, and Total. So again, you have this problem that the heading that you're typing in is wider than the available column space. So as soon as you type in the heading in the next cell, it's blotting out the end of this heading. It hasn't disappeared, it's still there. It's just being overshadowed by this. There is a way of wrapping text, in other words, making it look like it looks in the textbook there, but I'm not going to do that just now. I'm going to keep it simple, and I'm just going to highlight those words and go Format, Autofit Column Width. And it makes the columns wide enough to take the widest thing within them. So now I'm going to type in the numbers. And in general, it's easier to type in a column rather than a row, because after each entry, you can just press the enter button on your keyboard. So 185, 190, 120, 200, 208, and then click under Angels and Demons for the next column, 205, 210, 220, 188, 180. Now, we need to do a little bit of formatting. So the headings are meant to be in bold, so we'll highlight those 4 headings and we'll click the bold button on the Home tab. And when you click the bold button, what happens is that the writing gets thicker. So actually, the column was wide enough for Angels and Demons when it wasn't in bold, but now it's a little bit tight. So again, I would highlight those 4 columns and go Autofit Column Width. And the simplest way to highlight a column is to highlight it by clicking on its letter at the top, holding the mouse button down and dragging across to highlight some more columns. And then all the stuff that's highlighted, when I go Format, Autofit Column Width, the column widths will become such that they can accommodate the widest thing within them. Another thing you might notice is that the numbers are centered within their cells. So what we do here is we highlight, and I'll include the total one as well because I will have numbers in there eventually. And if we look here, there's a section called alignment, and there are buttons left, centered, and right. So we'll go with the centered button, and I'm going to do the same with the headings. And now that we have the formatting done, we'll go on to the actual question. And the first question says, question 1 on page 6, calculate total for Monday using a spreadsheet formula. So these three figures have to be added up for Monday. And there are easier ways of doing it, but since we're focusing on formulas at the moment and how to write a formula, we're going to do this by individually asking it to add the figures in B4, C4, and D4. So that will be equal to B4 plus sign C4 plus sign D4. And you can see that when you're typing it in, it's sort of highlighting the cells it's referring to. And once you're satisfied that you have the formula correct, if you press enter, it will implement the formula and work out the answer. Question 2 says copy this formula using fill down. So instead of me having to type in a separate formula for Tuesday and a separate formula for Wednesday and so on, I can use fill down to copy that formula into the other rows. So I do this by, first of all, selecting Monday's total. So with the total for Monday selected, position the mouse pointer over the fill handle. The fill handle is that little square in the corner of your cell. So when I move my mouse pointer over it, it changes from being a big white cross to a little black cross. When the mouse pointer changes to a black cross, drag downward to copy the formula. So holding your finger down on the left button of either your mouse or your trackpad, you pull down, and as soon as you lift your finger off the mouse button or the trackpad button, you will see the answers fill themselves in. And a very clever thing happens. When the formula was at the end of row 4, it knew it was to refer to B4, C4, and D4. When you copy that formula into row 5, it knows to refer to B5, C5, and D5, and so on. And that is called relative referencing, which we will deal with in greater detail later. Now we're going to do something similar with the totals for the actual films. So create a formula to calculate the total sales for Terminator Salvation. That's question 3. So again, there are quicker ways of doing this, but what I want to do here is to say, add up the numbers in B4, B5, B6, B7, and B8. So it's equal B4 plus B5 plus B6 plus B7 plus B8. And you will notice that as you mention those cell references, they highlight themselves. And when you're satisfied that you have typed in the formula correctly, you press enter and you get your result. And again, question 4 says copy this formula using fill right. So in a similar way to what we did for the totals in column E, we're going to do it for the totals on row 10. So I highlight my 550, which you can see is a result of the formula. And if I move my mouse pointer onto the corner of the cell, it changes to black crosshairs. And if I hold down my mouse button or my trackpad button and drag to the right, I get that formula being copied into columns C and D. And again, when it's in column C, it knows to refer to C4, C5, C6, C7, and C8. And when it's in column D, it knows to refer to D4, D5, D6, D7, and D8. Moving on to question 5, it says increase the width of columns A, B, and D. We've actually already done that. But if we wanted to adjust a column by a specified width, we can do the following. We can highlight column A and we can go Format, column width, and we can specify a particular width. So at the moment it's saying 9.78. Let's ask it to be the width 10. So we type in 10 for the width and say OK. And our column is now width 10. The next question, question 6, asks us to center the data in columns B, C, D, and E using the center button. So you might notice that these are not centered and it doesn't look very tidy. So we can highlight an entire column by highlighting the button for the column. And if I hold the mouse button or the trackpad button down and go across, I highlight all the columns. And if I look here on my alignment section, I have my center button there. Question 7 says format the headings to bold as shown using the bold button. So we had actually done that at the start. And then question 8 says change Monday sales for Terminator Salvation to 175. And this is the reason that we like spreadsheets. If we make a change on Monday, then the totals for Terminator Salvation and the totals for Monday will change without us having to do anything else. So 175 and press enter, and you will notice that the total for Terminator Salvation is now 1475 and the total for Monday is now 565. Finally, we're going to save this. So we go File and we say Save As, and you choose where you're going to save this. I'm just going to save it into Documents. And we name it, as we are told, Screen on the Green. You might need to get rid of what's there first. Screen on the Green. And hit the Save button. And you will notice it has given itself that name at the top. And I can now close this down. And if I go to my Documents folder, there you see Screen on the Green. And so that's the end of that video.